All right. Our guest speaker tonight is Mr. Don Roth. He's going to speak about Daniel 9, right?
Correct.
Okay. You can give him a little bit of information about yourself and that, and roll right into your topic.
Okay, well, there isn't a whole lot to say other than the fact that I've been in God's church for, all right, I really don't like to use that term church. I've been among the called, that God has called out of this world for a very special purpose. And I've been there for over 50 years. That's a long time. So you're not talking to a spring chicken here. I've been around and done a lot of things. Basically, my mode of employment was that of engineering, and I ultimately ran my own business for about 16 years, machine shop. So you can see that was basically my background as far as where I'm coming from. I think that what this has done for me, being in this field of engineering, and that, and if you don't recognize the fact that engineers are problem solvers, and this is the fundamental job of an engineer, is to solve problems. And so I've spent my working life solving problems for different companies, as well as my own. I was challenged several years back about the calendar, and I'd done a lot of work on the calendar. And I feel that technically the work that I have done is absolute as far as accuracy is concerned. We have been sending out CDs, and we've sent out over 2,000. Of those 2,000 people that have received the work, the detailed work on it, we have had no one who has been able to point to an error in the work. So this is part of what we are going to be looking at.
Where can they get that, the DVD? Where can they order that?
You can go to the Biblical Calendar Proof, biblicalcalendarproof.com, and it will come up. There's, as we get into this, you'll see that there's something that's very unique on that website about the calendar. But I'd like to open our discussion this evening by turning to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 1. And I'll read it to you. See what you think about it. Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Kebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoiakim's captivity. So when you, undoubtedly, if you've done any Bible reading, you've probably read this set of scriptures here. And what was the end result? Well, it's like the many times that I've read it, I thought, well, that's nice to, that God put all this information in, but it is pretty meaningless. And so basically, this is what we do when we come to scriptures in the Bible that spell out specific time elements. Now, if you're at all familiar with the book of Ezekiel, he does this throughout his book. He tells you that certain things happen on certain months. The thing is that really these are important things. When I went to high school, the teachers say write a theme, 100 words or 150 word theme or something on some subject or other, and I would put in every and, the, is, every little word I could to get to that 100, because once I got there, I was free and clear. See, so, but God doesn't do things that way. He puts things in His Word that mean something. The problem is we don't know what it means because we have no frame of reference. This is a problem. Now, we can now turn to the book of Daniel, and we'll go to chapter 9 of Daniel, and we'll take a look. We'll read what it says in chapter 9 of Daniel. Now, there's an important first statement that people kind of ignore in the very first verse. It says, in the first year of Darius, the son of Azarias, of the lineage of the Medes, who was made king over the realm of the Chaldeans. Now, it's the second verse that's important. In the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the books the number of years specified by the word of the Eternal, given through Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolation of Jerusalem. This is an important statement. You'll see why it's an important statement when we take a look at the actual prophecy, then of course that would start in verse 34. So this is something that we need to keep in mind. Now, before we go further into Daniel, I would like to bring out an important fact or a piece of knowledge. The first temple was destroyed in 70 AD. And not only do we know the date of 70 AD, but we know the month and the day of the month. And in addition to that, we know that that day followed a Sabbath. So the temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed in the 5th month, on the 10th day of the 5th month, following a Sabbath on the 9th. And the information that is promoted is the fact that the first temple was destroyed. Actually, the reference is really to the second temple being destroyed on the same day as the first temple. And so if we take a look at this, and the fact that the temples were destroyed on the same day, we're going to come up with an interesting fact. Now, the other thing that you have to realize is we may be talking in BC or BC and AD years, which is the Gregorian calendar, and which is different from the sacred calendar or the Hebrew calculated calendar, however you want to look at it. It's different in the fact that the years changes in the Gregorian calendar changes in the middle of the winter. And the calculated calendar, God's calendar, changes in the spring. So we have these little different anomalies. In addition to that, the leap years for the two calendars are offset by 2 years. In other words, the leap year for the Gregorian calendar is on a different year than the leap year for the Hebrew calculated calendar. But the bottom line really is that regardless of whether you're in the Gregorian calendar or the Hebrew calculated calendar, the two are in fact in agreement. Now, I gave you that website, which is biblicalcalendarproof.com. And if you would go to that website, you would see there are different headings that come up. And one of the headings is a calendar generator. Now, that calendar generator, it was based on all the work that I did on the calendar. And just to give you a simple understanding is the fact that what I did was really quite different from everyone else, because everyone else basically tries to figure backwards from the present time. But I said, this is really a simple process. You start at creation and you come forward in increments of 7 days. You just add 7 days, 7, 7, 7, 7. You keep doing that. And eventually you will come to a period of time that is about 6,000 years. And basically this is how I justified the two calendars. I brought them into alignment. And after 6,000 years, the two calendars, in fact, do agree. Now, you can take that calendar generator, which actually I did not personally do the work of producing a computerized program that would reflect this idea of 7 day increments. Some young man did that for me. I paid him to do it, of course, but as a result, we have this calendar generator, which in effect is exactly what I produced, only I did it in a more laborious way. In other words, if you wanted to look up a date based on the simple stuff that I did, it would take you quite a while. But if you click on the calendar generator, you can look up any date, any BC, AD, or BC date, and it will be absolutely accurate. How do I know this? Because it has been proven that way. If you go there and you'd look up December 7th, 1941, you'd find it was a Sunday. If you look up the signing of the Declaration of Independence, it was signed on a Thursday. If you look up that year, you would see that year, the signing was on a Thursday. And historically, we know that it was a Thursday. So the calendar generator is absolutely accurate. You can look up 70 AD. Now, I didn't make this work this way. This was a function of the mathematics. That's the thing that you have to understand. I didn't say, well, now let's see, what can I change here to make the destruction of the Second Temple come out the way it's supposed to? I didn't do that. I just gave the 7 day increments, laid it out, and you know what happens when you come to 70 AD? You find that the 5th month and the 9th day was of the 5th month was a Sabbath, and the 10th day was the day that the Romans set the torch to the temple. Now, once you realize this, you would have to understand something, that the destruction of the first temple only could occur in certain years. It can't just occur any year, because not every year has a 5th month with the 9th day as a Sabbath. You can only use certain years. Now, if you use, there is no other system, I can assure you, there is no other system by which you can determine this. And this is an important thing, as you will see, as far as Daniel 9 is concerned. And so, as a result of this, I did a little calculation, and it works out to be like 27% of the time. Only 27% of the time can this happen? So that means out of every 100 years, it would only occur 27 times in 100 years. Basically, this is pretty simple math. And so, as a result of that, what I did is, and this is probably, most of you will accept this, that the scholars, today's scholars, and I'm going head on against what they're saying, because they're saying that the destruction of the temple occurred in either 875, 876, or 877 BC. That's what they say. Well, you put it into the calendar, and you know what? None of those years has a 5th month with a 9th day Sabbath. So that means that all of their calculations, all of their figuring was just a bogus waste of time. Now, they wouldn't know that because they don't understand the calendar. I would like to, we can go to another chapter in Daniel. We'll go to chapter 12, and it says in verse 9. And he said, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white, and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly," and etc. So the reality is God didn't really allow this information to be understood until the end time. Is there any one of us who doesn't really believe that we're in the end time, especially with the latest treaty that our admirable president has just signed with Iran? So let's return once again to Daniel chapter 9 and read Daniel chapter 9. Now, I want you to keep in mind about the 70 years, because that 70 years is important. So it says, starting in verse 24, 70 weeks are determined for the people and for your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make a reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up the vision of the prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Now we get to the detail. It says, "Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem," you notice what is determined here? He's talking about Jerusalem. What did we read back in the second verse of Daniel 9? 70 years. It would be in desolation. So this is an important piece of information. Now, he says, "From the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, there shall be 70 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublesome times." Now, this is really quite clear. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's clear, because it says that you have 7 weeks and 62 weeks. You add that up, and that's 69. And 69 times 7 gives you a 483-year period. The problem, though, that we have here is we don't have an anchor. We don't have a starting point to which to at least without thinking about it. But if you think about it, you would say, as I did, I said, I have a starting point. Not only do I have a starting point, but I have a calculated calendar that is absolutely accurate, and it's proven that way. And I have a calculated generator that generates any year, going all the way back to the creation. Unbroken. In other words, I didn't say, oh, no, oh, well, this isn't working out, so I guess I'll have to drop a day here or drop a day there. No, there wasn't one day dropped. This is an absolute calendar without error, as far biblically. Now, I mean, uh, if you believe in evolution and all the other sorts, you'll take you won't you'll take issue with it. So um, if we once we understand that we now have, in other words, what year was Christ crucified? Well, we know 30 AD. Why do we know it was 30 AD? Because basically, as far as I'm concerned, quite a while ago, but as far as the world is concerned, not so long ago, that it was determined that the king, Herod, was died in 4 BC. So if he was intent on killing the Christ child, he would have had to been before 4 BC, so it would have been naturally in 5 BC, because historically we understand that shortly after, or the following year, he died after he killed all those children trying to do away with Christ, which was a pretty difficult time. So now, once we recognize that 30 AD is a starting point. Now, we know if we go back so many years, we come back to a certain time. In other words, 30 AD was, when he was crucified, was in the first month, right? Nisan, 14th of the first month. That's when he was crucified. And so that it doesn't mean that we have 30 years of time there, but when you figure back into the beginning of or the end of AD, that would be 29 years. And so you got 483, and if you take 29 from it, you have 454, and that 454 would be a BC year. That will give us the year of the declaration. Remember, it isn't the restoration. It's only the declaration that is going to happen. And so, actually, there is another kind of sidelight or interesting point, and that is that we're going to go to the book of Nehemiah, and you see in your, basically the way they have this, the Bible set up is you'll have Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. Actually, it's pretty much the wrong way around. It should be Esther and most of Nehemiah, and then Ezra mixed in with the book of Nehemiah. It isn't my object to go through all of this, but just to show you when this proclamation was made. And what we find is in the second chapter of Nehemiah is when this proclamation is made. And it's an interesting thing because it tells us a lot about time again, but we don't understand why. I mean, okay, it tells us here, and it came to pass in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was before him, that I took the wine and gave it to him, and so he serves him. And this tells us that it's the first month. This is an important consideration because when was Christ killed? In the first month. So our time element here for figuring is pretty easy, isn't it? And so if we go back, that number of years, we would come to BC 454. Okay, now that's a significant number. BC 454. That was the year that this king made this declaration and gave Nehemiah the authority, the letters, everything else that goes into doing this change, making this, restoring Jerusalem. The interesting thing is this: where these men were located was, roughly 1,000 miles from Jerusalem, and of course they had these high-powered diesel trucks, and they could haul all the stuff and get everything done in lickety-split time. Or did they just use camels and horses and things like that? Things were a little slow, maybe. So the reality is, we're going to see something here that's important. That year, 454, now we can say, oh, if we can figure back the 70 years, right? Didn't we read in Daniel about the 70 years? That the city of Jerusalem would be in destruction for 70 years. Well, if you would take that, you would come to a time when the temple should have been destroyed, because the temple was destroyed at the same time that the city of Jerusalem was destroyed. That's what it amounts to. But as I pointed out, if you use that figure, it can't work. It can't work because the 5th month, the 9th day of the 5th month, that should have been, or the 10th day following the 9th day, which was a Sabbath, didn't exist in that year. But if you go 1 year further, then you do connect to that specific time in the calendar. So what we have here in truth is a lock of dates that actually can't be moved. And the reasoning on this is, yes, he gave Nehemiah the direction or the authority. He proclaimed it, and that's exactly what we found. If you remember what it says from the declaration, so many years will go by, and the declaration was made in that year. But that year does not reflect, when you add, now you take and you add the 7 years of desolation, and as I pointed out, Jerusalem was destroyed at the same time as the temple, the same year. And we can go back and look at 2 Kings and see that is, in fact, what we have. I don't think it is really necessary to do that, though. Let me see. Do we want 2 Kings? No, that was... Jeremiah 52, verse 6 and 7, 12 through 13 is another reference to the temple being destroyed on this 10th day. So this isn't something that Jeremiah 52. Jeremiah 52. Jeremiah 52, verse 6 and 7, it reads as follows: By the 4th month, on the 9th day of the month, the famine had become so severe in the city that there was no food for the people of the land. Then the city wall was broken through, and all the men of war fled, and went out of the city at night on the way of the gate between the two walls, which was by the king's garden, even though even though the Chaldeans were near the city all around, and they went by way of the plain. And of course, the Chaldean army, but the Chaldean army, but the army of the Chaldeans pursued the king, and they overtook Zedekiah on the plains of Jericho. All his army was scattered from him. And so they took him. And then we want to look at verse 12. And it says, Now in the 5th month, on the 10th day of the month, which was the 19th year of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, the captain of the guard who served the king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem. He burned the houses of the Lord, and the king's houses, and all the houses of Jerusalem, that is, all the houses of the great men were he burned with a fire. And so we can see that this is when it took place. The temple was destroyed, Jerusalem was destroyed. It all basically happened at the same time. But as I pointed out, if you take that year of the declaration and go back, you can't fulfill the requirements that we have for the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. You can't do it. So therefore, you have to recognize that we're not talking about the building. You see, the Jerusalem wasn't rebuilt until the next year. And in the next year, and you'd have to recognize, it took them time to get all the letters written, etc., and sent out, and all the necessary things done. And so the temple, the building of the wall of Jerusalem, was what Nehemiah, the first project, and that was the start of the building of Jerusalem. That was the start. And so as we look at that, we can see that if we go back, we can see that BC 523 was the year that the temple was destroyed. And if you look up BC 523 on the calendar generator, you will find that it meets this requirement of the 10th day following the Sabbath of the night. And so we've just covered here a period of time, which in fact, in reality, you couldn't really move this. I mean, it's so fundamentally straightforward that when you take the death of Christ crucified, you take those 483 years to the declaration, then you realize that just because it was declared doesn't mean that the building had started. The Jerusalem was still laying waste at that point in time. It wasn't until another year went by before the big rebuilding of Jerusalem started. Nehemiah started and in a very short time rebuilt the wall, 45 days, I think it was. What you have to understand about this is that when you think about rebuilding the wall, the whole wall wasn't broken down. Just places in the wall was broken down where the Chaldeans army could come through to destroy the rest and take capture of the rest of the city. So what they did in those 45 days was repair the breaches. That's what took place. That's why you say, oh, wow, they built a whole wall in 45 days? No, they didn't build the whole wall in 45 days. They just repaired the breaches. So these are important considerations for you to recognize. Now, what part of this do you want to change? Would be my question. What part of this would you want to change? Now, I can tell you that just as we read in Ezekiel 1, we read about how Ezekiel was placing this time element relative to the captivity of one of the kings of Judah. And he tells you, he gives you the very day. So if you would be able to determine, well, now, when would this happen? Well, every one of these dates is tied together. You can't, I've gone through this, and I made a timeline. Actually, Peggy Wales has been working with me on producing a timeline, and this is not an easy thing to do, especially for me. I'm not, I don't have the computer smarts to do all of this thing, but she does. And so the reality is that this timeline that I am working on, and I have started the writing. I have 6 pages written. By the way, it's kind of interesting. It's really ironic because when I was in school, the thing that I hated most was writing. I tell you what, it was the worst thing that there was for me to do. But since I was X'd out of the Philadelphia Church of God, I have done a lot of writing. I couldn't believe it. I had file, and the thing was, it's about 2 inches thick of written work that I've done on different subjects. And I kind of have to laugh at myself because I know how I detested writing. And yet here I am doing a lot of writing. So the idea of this talk really is to give you the impetus, one, to go to the calendar generator and check it out for yourself. One of the men that fellowships with us, with our group, he checked his mother's wedding date, and it shows that she was married on a Wednesday. So he calls her up. He said, "Mom," he said, "were you married on a Wednesday?" And she said, "How did you know?" Well, he looked in the calendar generator. You see, that calendar generator has to be accurate because why? It's a multiple of 7 from creation to the present. And it is accurate. You can check it out for yourself on your own wedding dates or whatever you have, whatever important date that you may want to look up historically. You can look up these, certain dates during the Civil War. You can look that up, and you'll see that the calendar generator is very accurate. Tells you exactly the day of the week, the year, the month, etc. Not only, the interesting thing about this calendar generator is that it shows 3 calendars. It shows the Hebrew calculated calendar, the solar calendar, and the Gregorian calendar. And it shows that all 3, in reality, all 3 are in agreement to the day. So, if there are any questions about the material covered, we're open for questions.
Okay, and the way we usually handle this is we'll go with, there's a couple questions and comments in the chat room. We'll do them first. And then if you have a comment or would like to ask or ask a question, if you have a camera, turn it on. That'll be our signal that you have. That's like raising your hand. Otherwise, just kind of wait for a blank spot. Let's see here. Raymond's question is, what was meant, okay, I think you just answered that. What was meant that the three calendars agree was counted to 6,000 years. Right here, it's right there in front.
I can't read that.
Okay. What was meant that the three calendars agree after it was counted to 6,000 years?
Well, what we realize, what I realized is that I had to have a timeline that I could refer back to see if the two calendars were in agreement. And that timeline is the 247 years that the calculated calendar repeats itself every 247 years. It resulted in me producing a chart which was number 6 in the series of charts that I made. And what I did is I kept adding these up and showing how these dates related to the solar calendar. Now, the two calendars are slightly off. And so you have to, when you do this calculation, you have to account for that discrepancy. Well, and this is exactly what I did. So when I went through and I looked at this, I said, it looks like we understand that about 6,000 years have transpired since creation. We don't know exactly, but there would be a way of determining this, wouldn't there? And so what I did is I took that chart 6 and I looked at it and I said, we have a Gregorian calendar that shows the dates in accordance with the present, with the calculated calendar. That is chart number 3. And it's something that you can go to the Encyclopedia Britannica and look this up, and you will see that they have this piece of information in there. And the man that did the work was C.H. Lindo, and he was a brilliant Jew who was a bookkeeper. I mean, that's what they called him, a bookkeeper. But in reality, he had to be a real mathematician because he figured out how this calculated calendar fit into the Gregorian calendar. And as a result of that, we have, we can look at the Feast of Trumpets occurring at a certain day in the Gregorian calendar, and this is in agreement with the calculated calendar. So I could go back and I could say, when do these two mesh? When do they mesh? Well, they mesh as it worked out for the year, at least that I was working with, was 6,046 years. So, and I think that was like 2010 or something like that. I'm not really prepared to enter into that. But that's how the two were meshed. Once they were meshed, then you can see that they always work. That's the way it is. It's not because I fiddled with the numbers, because I didn't do that. The numbers are the numbers. I mean, come on. You take 7 days and you add 7 and 7 and 7 and you bring it forward. Eventually, you get to the 7th day. And actually, you see that calendar that I produced is in fact a calendrical, mathematical proof of the Bible. It proves the Bible because it shows that the 7th day that we observe, in fact, is a replication of 7 days from creation. Is there a question someone has asked?
No, it's someone on the telephone. Unfortunately, I have no control of that. Anyhow, David Geyer was just mentioning that the Tish B'Av, or the ninth day of the fifth month, begins at the end of the Sabbath evening, Saturday, July 25th, and ends Sunday, July 26th. And yeah, it's just his comment. Okay, Raymond sees what you meant. That's
Okay.
Any other questions, comments, ideas, suggestions?
Okay. Well,
Again, that's was. If you want to know the website, it's in the chat room. Raymond put it up there for us. Biblicalcalendarproof.com is the website. And then your church website is
T-COG.
T-COG if you wanted to know about service times. They broadcast over web and do a teleconference. No other comments? Mike, do you have anything?
Not down a different TV.
And for the people who are on the telephone, we hear you saying goodbye to your guests.
I think if you use, most telephones will use a *6 to mute themselves, even if they don't have a mute button. If they put in *6, it will mute their phones, most of them.
I don't have a *6.
Oh, okay.
But he's talking to his people.
Right.
So, Alan Turner. What question would you have, sir?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Yes, John, my question is, how does having this information benefit me today? What does it do for me as a person who is striving to remain faithful in 2015? What does it do to enhance my faith and my understanding of who God is and what He's doing?
Well, first of all,
Yeah, we can. Is there any way of muting those people on your end there?
is that
Yeah, see, he's rebroadcasting. He's using the phone link. I don't have any control over the phone link. So everything they're saying is completely disrupting this whole meeting. I'm going to have to talk to GoToMeeting about this.
Can the administrator put his mouse over their phone icon and click on it and turn it off? You can in our rooms. I don't know if you can.
Okay, good. Shh.
Click on mine, it turns it off, but the administrator should be able to click on any of it.
Okay, let's just quiet. Let the phone come through. Yes, I don't have a phone. I have no control.
okay?
Oh, very well.
Fundamentally, let's start with the Sabbath, right? You believe that the seventh day that we call Saturday, you believe was the seventh day of creation, correct? Yes, he's shaking his head. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what this does is an absolute proof that this is the day. It isn't just well, God wouldn't change this date, et cetera, et cetera. But what this is an actual proof, mathematical and calendrical proof, showing that the day that we are observing today, right today, in fact was the seventh day of creation. That's what that shows. That's the first thing it shows. The second thing it shows is that we have a lot of dates. Now, I didn't want to go into these things because of the amount of time and etc. that would be involved in it. But what this does is it's going to open up these scriptures for you. Once you know what the date was in Ezekiel 1, and once you know the other dates in Ezekiel, you will be surprised what day of the week that these things took place on. And it's without going into them, it's an extremely interesting arrangement. Now, the other thing is, one of the criticisms of the Bible is that, well, you got this guy writing here, and this guy writing over there, and this guy writing over here. The reality is that what happens is Second Kings, Second Chronicles, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah, all of these writers that wrote these books, they all are in agreement to the year. And in some places, it's almost to the day that they are in agreement. And when you say that, well, now wait a minute, how could all of these men, these writers, be that good that they would be able to be in total agreement? When this work is finished, you will see that it is a lattice of interlocked dates. Not something that, well, okay, Ezekiel doesn't fit, but, well, okay. No, Ezekiel fits perfectly. Jeremiah fits perfectly. Second Kings and Second Chronicles fits perfectly. Ezra and Nehemiah fit perfectly. All of these books, written at different times by different authors, have, in fact, an interlocking date. And it carries us right back to the crucifixion of Christ, our Redeemer. So what this is a gigantic building of faith. Now, when I say faith, I'll tell you what. My faith is not based on, well, I think could have happened and this is the way it'll be, da-da-da-da. I just trust in it. No, my faith is a written faith. It's a written guarantee. That's the importance. That's what you have. You have a written guarantee. How does that help you?
It sounds like what you're saying is that it's the evidence that all these things were orchestrated in very precise patterns.
You're
so
right.
that we can see and know that they were in fact orchestrated.
Correct. That's right. You did a better job than I did.
No, Mr. Roth, for me, it's still the fact that you can use your calendar to go back and demonstrate what day of the week any of the holy days fell on, which in itself proves the calculated Hebrew calendar is the correct way to use to figure our calendar, our holy days. I mean, that proof alone, it just blows you away when you realize you go back anywhere the Bible actually gives you enough information to know when that came up on the calendar in the year. You can generate your calendar for that year and see that it comes up on the proper day. It comes up on a Sabbath, or whatever day that it should have come up on. And so that proof in itself is worth everything you're doing to me.
I think that your appreciation will be enhanced once this work is finalized. I have the timeline. I mean, the timeline has all been worked out. I just have to complete the written work to go along with the timeline, and with the help of Mrs. Wales, this is going to be. This will really. It'll be something that it won't be difficult to look at. It'll be almost self-explanatory.
Okay.
I'll tell you, when you get to the point where you have the show and tell tools, it'll move forward. Because no matter how much I believe in what you're doing, and even gradually understand how you did it, I say that gradually in a very weak way. But you lose me when you try to explain it. You really do. But when you get it all put down where the proof is in the pudding, we can see the dates coincide. We can see it in a format that makes sense. We don't have to know how you got it that way.
Well, okay, that's true. You don't have to go through all the math and the work, and it took me a long time. I'm not saying that I did this overnight.
You've been working on this for about 6 years?
Right. You see, when as I did each thing, did the first work on the calendar, it was through the Exodus, through Joshua 5 is where I stopped. And then I did another writing that I picked it up, and you can see this on the website, about the dedication of the first temple. I show how many years transpired before the temple was built and dedicated. This is all. It's all. I didn't take something that wasn't in your Bible. This is the other thing. I never, unless of course it agrees with the Bible. I mean, you can have agreeing historical events, etc., that agree with the Bible, but the Bible is it's the perfect book as far as I'm concerned.
Rich Daniel says good night.
Okay, good night, Rich. I got to get up and see him. I just too much going on.
And then there's the Myers. Greetings.
Can't hear him.
Your mic is muted. You gotta mute your mic up there in the corner.
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. I was listening to a radio program a couple days or after the same-sex marriage was passed, and the guy was he brought up Jeremiah 39:2, and it says, in the 11th year of Zedekiah, in the 4th month, the 9th day of the month, the city was broken up, or was penetrated or breached. And he said that the day, June 26th, was actually the 4th month and the 9th day. Can you confirm that there? And I was also wondering as far, maybe the same. Well, go ahead.
I can't confirm it because I don't have access to the generator.
Oh, okay.
If I had access to the generator,
One moment.
July, not June. It's July.
yeah,
4th month.
yeah,
9th of Av is in July.
the 9th of Av is in July.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't tell you one way or right now myself because I haven't got I don't have my computer here, so I can just.
Well, you need your generator. It's on your website.
Yeah, right.
Okay. We'll bring that up here.
Okay, give us.
Hang on. What's here? You drive.
Where's the arrow?
Right there.
Okay.
You want it up here? You want
No.
Just type in the web.
T-COG. Put in there.
to? Okay.
I
Oh,
typed
you're just
there.
gonna call off the link. Yeah.
Okay. Now go to the website.
Right here.
Yeah, they're right there. Click on that. Now click down here. Okay. Now click on the calendar generator. Okay. Now what year did he give?
There you go.
No,
Well,
you make it work. What year was?
June 26th of 2015.
Okay, put in 2015. 2015.
Oops. Okay.
Okay, and then put AD. Generate. Okay, now go down. And what date did he? That was June 26th. Did you say, or July?
June.
June. Okay, June. June 26th was a Friday.
Yep.
And that would have been 1, 2, 3, 4th month. Would have been the 9th day of the 4th month Hebrew.
Okay, so the guy was right then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, he should have been.
Right. And I was just wondering if there was any other, like say when the abortion was signed into law, if that fell on something that coincided with a date given in the Bible. I mean,
one interesting thing in Daniel, if you're looking for something interesting, let's go to the
Here,
book.
yeah. Let me quickly share my computer screen here, and we can share the scripture. As soon as I
Okay.
find it. Come on, where's my mouse? There it
Oh,
is.
come on, where's Daniel?
Sure,
Here,
yeah.
Ezekiel, Daniel.
Okay.
If you go into the 11th chapter of Daniel,
Okay, I'm gonna get a catch up here.
okay, and starting in verse 40, it says, "At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots." Okay, now I need to go before that. He makes an agreement here. Where do we find that? He makes an agreement with many. He shall enter the land of his enemies. He shall strengthen Egypt. He shall power over the treasures east.
it ain't 39, is it?
39. He shall act against the strongest fortresses with a foreign god, which he shall acknowledge and advance its glory, and he shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. It talks about, I'm looking for the scripture where it talks about him making an agreement with many. And this is exactly what has just transpired. He, in other words, Iran, has made an agreement with many. Russia, all of Europe, United States, Canada, everybody is signing off on this ignorant arrangement. It's like, who's the guy in beginning before World War II, Devon? No, what was his name? They come back waving, "We have peace in our time." He signed an agreement with Hitler.
Oh, Mussolini?
No. English.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
It's not coming to mind right now.
Yeah. Anyway, it's the same thing, President Obama, "Oh, we have this great agreement." Yeah, right, that's right. We have a great agreement. You might as well, it's not worth the paper it's printed on.
Yeah, and one other thing is a treaty or an agreement cannot be signed by the president per the Constitution of the United States. It has to go through the Senate. And the House has to approve it before any treaty can be ratified. So the people of this country would wake up and read the Constitution, know what it said, we'd have that idiot out of office.
But they don't. Anyway, that
was my editorial comment. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, well, okay.
Can you also give a quick brief as far as what you talked about the proclamation compared to, I forget the other term that you brought up.
The actual restoration.
Okay, yeah.
You see the declaration was made in 454 BC in the first month. When was Christ crucified? In the first month. You see the relationship? It's like solid, but that is only the declaration. That wasn't the rebuilding. The rebuilding occurred the following year before they actually got the materials, etc., and all the letters they had. If you read that chapter, the second chapter of Nehemiah, you'll see that there was a lot of work that had to be done as far as letters delivered to this person and that person. And we're not talking about the internet now. We're talking about handwritten stuff that had to be taken by whatever, horseback, carriage, chariot, who knows.
David Geyer has it.
Yeah.
Chamberlain Neville.
Yeah. Neville Chamberlain, he came back waving the piece of paper. Yeah, we have peace in our time. Yep, right. We had World War II. It's just pathetic. Anyway, it wants to make a person weep. It's.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Good seeing you. Any other comments or questions?
I didn't know how to call work straight for me.
No, it was someone Yadner in the back. Okay, if there are no further comments or questions, that concludes the official portion of our broadcast tonight. A reminder, tomorrow at noon we have our normal week, our once a month discussion. The topic tomorrow is, in light of the most recent current events, what should we be doing? Is the discussion topic. And again, if you'd like to see Mr. Roth's, the church website is t-cog.org. And you meet at 1 o'clock every Sabbath.
Okay. It's been a great evening, and I appreciate the time that everyone has spent with me. Hopefully, it'll give you something to think about.